Hello, everyone. I do hope you are having a good day. I am coming to you a little bit later today. One thing led to the other. But I wanted to touch base with you as it relates to Relationships 101. And the topic is how to handle brokenness in relationships. Subtopic Pieces of Me from the song by Ledisi called Pieces of Me. One of the definitions that I found of relationships, as we've spoken about in previous episodes, is the way in which two or more people or things are connected or the state of being connected. And broken is from the word break, which means to separate into pieces as a result of a blow rather, a shock or strain, right? To separate into pieces. So that's very much in line with the topic pieces of me. So I'll start off with a story. So like 2 summers ago, I purchased a pair of rose-colored sunglasses. They looked cute. Whether they looked cute on me is a completely different thing, but I thought they looked cute. So I purchased them. It was a Saturday, put them on, started walking to the park. But on my way to the park, I made a very strange observation. I noticed that a lot of the vehicles that were driving past me had like neon green lights, headlights, and that puzzled me. I was like, why do the cars in Leicester have this neon green light? And it puzzled me, but I had a destination to get to, so I just kept walking. But I kept making that observation, but I didn't let it perturb me. But when I got to the traffic lights at the top of the road, I took my glasses off, and lo and behold, I realized that the headlights were not neon green at all. It was my rose colored glasses that had turned or had created the illusion that the lights were neon green, but in reality, they were just white, as they've always been. But I fell for the illusion. I was definitely persuaded that the lights were neon green because of the glasses that I had on, because of the lens I was looking through. But I wasn't aware of the effect of that lens. And sometimes brokenness can have an effect, not sometimes, but all the time actually. Brokenness can have an effect on relationships, and the individuals within the relationship or people are not aware of that effect. I'll just read you an excerpt from the song Pieces of Me. Thought it was pertinent. So it says, when it looks like I'm up, sometimes I'm down. I'm alone even with people all around. But that don't change the happiness I found. These are the pieces of me. So when you look at my face, you got to know that I'm made of everything, love and pain. These are the pieces of me. So to me, that excerpt shows the brokenness that can occur in individuals and the fragmentation. So they're pieces of an individual. They're in love, but they're in pain. They're with people, but they feel alone. And so that's brokenness in play, in action. So my understanding of brokenness is that it occurs in individuals when the shock or strain from a circumstance or series of circumstances causes a person to become fragmented. The fragmentation can be seen in an unbridled tongue, for instance, a tongue that just lashes out. It's harsh, it's critical, it's unbridled. It has no chill. It has no chill at all. Excessive sensitivity, you can't say anything to the individual. They get upset over the slightest thing. Their sense of humor, they like touch and go. You never know when you're going to trip on something and say the wrong thing. They're excessively sensitive. There's a disconnect as it relates to emotions, so they don't understand how their words or their actions are affecting the emotions of others around them. There's a fluctuation in emotions, so the person's like an emotional roller coaster. 1 minute they're up, like the song says, the next minute they're down, and you don't even actually know why because they haven't taken the time to look at why. There's also emotional responsiveness. They love you, but they don't know how to communicate that to the individual. These are some examples of brokenness. that can occur in an individual, and when that individual is in a relationship, it can affect the relationship. So, brokenness in relationships. This is just some observations and some highlights. It is important to know that as much as you love your partner, they are broken. So, reality check. You might be all loved up. When that love bubble bursts, you will realize and you'll start to see that person's brokenness. And that's just a fact of life. It's also important to recognize that you also are broken. So we're all broken, but just in different places. And understand that you'll have experienced different sets of life circumstances, which will have led them to their brokenness. Your experiences are different from theirs, and those different set of circumstances would have led to each individual being broken in different places. One party might be emotionally unresponsive, for instance, and the other party might be an emotional roller coaster. It can get really tricky when they display more than one sign, which is often the case. They have more than one thing going, so they could be emotionally unresponsive, but they could also have an unbridled tongue. So it can become tricky because more than one sign can manifest in an individual. Yeah, these things can actually affect the relationship negatively. It is important to note that if your partner has been in other relationships prior to their present relationship, which is often the case, those relationships may have had an impact on them and may have contributed to their brokenness. It's also important to note that just because a person is broken does not preclude or exclude them from ever becoming whole. So just because a person is broken doesn't mean that they can never become whole. Yeah? So let's look at wholeness, the reality about wholeness, look at some perceptions about wholeness. Ideally, people should go into a relationship whole, but the reality is a lot of the time that's not the case. People go into relationships broken. So what do you do? And we'll look into that later. The concept of wholeness is not the absence of brokenness. Rather, it's a journey that takes the individual from being broken to a place of acceptance, to a place of peace, to a place where they've connected the dots adequately, where they've connected the dots between their past and their present. So they're able to identify what situations and occurrences that happened in the past have led to them being the person that they are today, and have led to some of the reactions that they display, some of the behaviors that they display, what incidents in the past contributed to those present behaviors. So they connect the dots. So a person who's whole has been able to connect enough dots to their past and made the link and made the association. They've done the inner work, right? Wholeness in reality is not the absence of brokenness, but rather when those pieces have been identified and then glued back together. That's what wholeness is. Because each individual, I watched some children a couple of years ago, and they looked so innocent, and I was like, how do people become broken? And as I observed various life experiences and people, I realized that every individual will be broken by life. Doesn't matter how much their parents try to protect them. Their parents could do a great job of protecting them, but eventually that individual will be broken. But it's just how deep the brokenness goes. So love is often the glue that holds the broken pieces together. So love of God, love of self, and love of people. That's what actually acts as a glue that holds and brings the pieces together to make that individual whole again. Wholeness, therefore, looks like a broken ceramic plate that has been glued back together. The sizes of the pieces within that plate will be broken. It will differ, so the size will be different because it's shattered. You had no control over the breaking process, so the sizes of the pieces of that plate will be different. The glue marks and the cracks are evidence that individual was once broken, that plate was once broken. Sometimes there will be leakages, sometimes there will be rebound behaviors, but doesn't mean or preclude the reality of that person having been made whole. Just because you're whole doesn't mean that you're not going to slide back sometimes to old ways of being, old attitudes, old ways of thinking. But the difference with a whole person is that they're able to recognize and identify when that slippery slope begins. They catch themselves and they move forward into the person that they have decided to be, because wholeness is a decision, and it's a decision that only you can make for yourself. So how do you handle brokenness in relationships? So I have some pointers, I have some tips that I'll share with you today. Just before I go on to share that, I forgot to say, go ahead and subscribe, share this video, subscribe. That's the key word, subscribe. Thank you. So how to handle brokenness in relationships. Identify the brokenness in yourself and in your partner. This awareness can help with cultivating understanding when they react in a way that you consider to be not normal, or you consider to be irrational. So for instance, if your partner explodes over something small, you could say at a later time when things have calmed down a bit, either in person or by text, you could say something like, "Hun, I noticed that when I said X, you exploded. Was it what I said, or was it linked to a situation that occurred in your past?" A text is good because it allows the person the privacy and the time to be able to process your question, because that's a deep question that they might not necessarily have the answer to. They might not be aware that their reaction is irrational. They might not be aware that they've overreacted. But then when you ask that question in a respectful and a calm manner, allow them the time to process it, and just say something like, "I'm happy to talk about it with you whenever you feel ready to." So that allows them the time to process their thoughts and then to share their thoughts with you at a later date whenever they feel comfortable to do so. Yeah? So it's all about understanding and timing. Okay? When you're having an argument, that's not the time to bring that up, because it won't be well received. It will not be well received. Next, remember that you are just as broken as your partner, but perhaps in different ways and to different degrees. So the best way forward is to commit first to love and next to forgiveness. So accept that this person that you love very dearly will hurt you because of their brokenness, and also accept the fact that you, in your turn, will hurt them, even though you love them, because of your brokenness. So just commit to forgiveness and to loving them no matter what. Ledisi says in her song "Pieces of Me," it says, "I'm alone even with people around, but that don't change the happiness I found." Looking at those words, it's important to recognize, open your eyes and see whether what you have, so the relationship you have, recognize whether it's real, if it provides you with real love, real happiness, and not just a superficial kind of love and a superficial kind of happiness. But if it's real, recognize it. If it genuinely makes you happy, if the individual genuinely contributes to your happiness, because no one is responsible for your happiness but you. But if that individual genuinely contributes to your happiness, then commits to doing the inner work for yourself and also for them, so you can make their lives more pleasurable, because you're just going to be a better person to be around once you've done your inner work. Okay, and make wholeness a goal, not perfection. Perfection as a goal can seem quite high and lofty, but if you make wholeness the goal, then you recall that I said wholeness is not the absence of brokenness, but rather it's bringing all those pieces together and getting them glued back together so that the plate is whole, the individual is whole, and can be of service. So be patient with each other. Above all, be patient with yourself. Realize that wholeness starts with recognizing the area of brokenness first. Next, you can take steps to fix that area. So if you're emotionally unresponsive, delve into your past and connect the dots. Explore the reasons why you're emotionally unresponsive, what happened in your past, that has caused you to be this way. Look at those issues. They might be painful, so take your time. Allow yourself the privacy and the time to go through it. Make peace with your past. The things in the past, well, everything in the past you cannot change because it's the past. It's gone, it's happened, pleasant or unpleasant. It is what it is. So make peace with it and forgive the perpetrators. If there were people in the past that hurt you, that contributed to you being the broken person that you are today, forgive them. Because when you forgive them, you take the power back into your hands. They no longer control your life. They no longer have the power to control your actions, your behaviors, your attitudes, the way that you are. So once you've forgiven them, then you can move forward and then put in the efforts to act in a different way. So if you are if you're normally a person that has an emotional roller coaster, one minute you're up, one minute you're down, like the song says, stop and ask yourself why. Why am I up? Why am I down? Why am I not consistent in my emotions? What is it? What's going on inside of me? That takes time. That takes silence. That takes internal reflection. That takes patience. And above all, because I know some people have been through some horrific experiences, you might need assistance, you might need help in trying to figure out and delve into the issues of the past. So get professional help if that's what you need, if that's what your partner needs. But if you make the journey to wholeness and understand that brokenness is a part of life, it's nothing to be ashamed of, but it's not to be ignored either. Okay, so those are my tips on brokenness. Please feel free to share this with whoever you think needs to hear it. Go ahead and subscribe as always. Stay safe, okay? Keep your mind focused on things that are positive. Until next time, take it easy. Bye.